Can everyone see my screen, the presentation?
Yes,
we can.
yes, we can.
And sorry, just for the benefit of the group, would it be possible for you to give us a brief introduction of yourself so we know who you are and what experience you have got?
Yep. So that's actually in the slides. So let me just quickly jump to that if that is of interest. So the agenda today, we're just going to talk about the company ABN Finsights, and then we'll talk about my background. We'll talk about the course benefits, modules, testings, as well as the CP certificates, and we will also talk about its relevance with respect to the job market. And then we'll speak about some early bird discounts, and then we can give some time to the questions and answers. Moving on, I'll just briefly touch on the company itself. We are basically a learning academy, to keep it short and concise, and we want to target the business professionals around the globe. We don't want to confine ourselves with a particular region. Anyone who wants our service, we are going to reach out, we're going to deliver it. Our main professional activities are, these are just summarized. It's not limited to that. We can also provide some custom, very tailor-made services to the organizations that are interested in. But to keep it short, we are going to target executive courses, basically, continuing professional development hours, the companies who are willing to give their employees some CPDRs, or some employees who themselves want to upskill and cross-skill themselves. We want to target them. Our special target market is for financial executives, and we want to work with experienced and qualified trainers across the globe. The second part that we also want to target is networking opportunities. Like, if you can imagine, I mean, we are currently based in Melbourne. The mere idea of you being able to talk to someone from Pakistan, or someone from the UAE, someone from Saudi Arabia, someone from India, or someone in the European markets is in itself a bit of a, what do you call it, a good opportunity to kind of share your knowledge as to what's happening in the industry, what sort of stuff you do, what sort of stuff others do, and then that you can also do a bit of cross-industry understanding, and also, enhance your expertise through cross-learning, should I say. We also want to, or we also do organize seminars and conferences across the globe. So bringing in high quality speakers to a central location, to a particular location, or doing it online and bringing all the professions together and delivering content which is of good quality, should I say. Talking about my own profile, I'm currently working as a regional audit and analytics manager at Aurora Group Limited. The company is based in Melbourne. It's an ASX listed company. We basically, in terms of our business, we are a manufacturing company predominantly related to the food and beverages sector. So what we do is we manufacture cans for Coke, for example. We also manufacture bottles for them, and we also manufacture we used to manufacture cardboard boxes for the food industry, but we've sold part of that business. We have a strong presence in Australia and New Zealand, and we also have a presence in North America. In North America, we are predominantly a manufacturing as well as a distribution business. Personally, I've got a decade worth of internal audit and risk analytics experience across different industries. I started my career in the Central Bank of Pakistan, and then I moved to Australia, worked with the Victorian Public Service, and now in the manufacturing industry. I've got visualization skills in Power BI and Tableau, and I've also got programming skills in R, mainly related to data cleansing, exploratory analysis, visualization, and machine learning. Now, just before we move on further, I'd also like to mention that one question might come, well, if you're skilled in visualization and in Power BI as well as Tableau, why are you teaching Power BI more than Tableau? Well, the answer to that is that Power BI is, although not as beautiful when it comes to visualization, Tableau is far more beautiful when it comes to visualization and pictorial representation, but Tableau is a more expensive, like it's more high-end in terms of visualization. Power BI actually is cheaper, and also it's got a stronger community presence because it's supported by Microsoft. And also lots of companies can get Power BI as an enterprise license, which makes it far cheaper, far more viable than Tableau. So which is why we're targeting Power BI. And it's actually also reflective of the fact that in the market, the uptake of Power BI as a tool is far quicker than Tableau has been or will ever probably be, because it's just the fact that it's backed by Microsoft, which makes it a far more useful tool. If we talk specifically about this course, we can just jot it down to minimize and keep it at a summary level. I think what we are trying to achieve here is we want to improve the participants' visualization and DAX programming skills. Now, this is not to say that it's going to be extremely hard, because I know some of the people do not have any background of using Power BI. The target market of this course is actually people who do not have an IT background, or the IT background is a bit weaker to that extent. So we'll literally be hand-holding from the start to the finish, and we'll focus on, well, what sort of codes and what sort of functions we can use in order to, let's say, extract, manipulate, prepare the data, and then work from there onwards towards the visualization aspect, which is more towards, you know, talking about what sort of charts look better, what's the strength and weakness of each chart, what sort of filters we can apply on the charts, page level, visualization level, and so on and so forth. The other objective that we have is to improve front-end self-service expertise of the participants who use this tool. When I say front-end self-service, this actually means that, well, when you implement a tool, initially you get a lot of support from vendors and from IT, but a certain stage comes when you've got the few suite of reports, but you want to improve those reports and you want your own reports, and you simply cannot wait for IT to give you a project cost or be on your demand all the time. When you've got the data dictionary available, or you've got the basic data ETL already done by the IT, what you can do then is build on that and make more charts and more reports and create more measures, create more calculated columns, and make your data model more complex, for example. But you should be able to do it on your own rather than rely on IT all the time. The reason behind that is, well, A is the cost, B is the time. If you're able to do some of the stuff yourself, you'll probably realize you're adding more value in your business decisions all the time. The third part is actually not related to the tool itself, but it's about enhancing the data analysis capability of professionals with limited IT background. The reason why I say it is because tool is just one thing, and data analytics is more about a mindset. And we're going to run through the examples when we actually do the course. That data analytics is not just knowing the tool, but also thinking in the right way. What type of insights can I derive from this particular data? What type of data quality issues should I be aware of? What should I do in order to make sure that my data quality is better in months to come, for example? And how can I make my tool more scalable and more user-friendly? So these are the type of questions that can be answered not just by knowing the tool itself, but also by having that mindset. So we'll also try and make sure that you think like a person who has an analytics background, regardless of the fact that you did not receive any IT training, for example. With respect to the content itself, we imagine that it's going to be, or the plan is to cover the course across 8 sessions, and it's going to be around 2 hours each. Most of the content is going to be practical, which means that there will be some of the theoretical aspects of the course to start with, but then most of it is going to be hands-on lab exercises. So you need to have your laptop with you. You will need to have the tool installed. There will be an example data set provided, and I will expect you guys to follow what I'm doing, and it'll largely be interactive. Obviously, most of the hand-holding I'll be doing myself, but we can, exchange a bit of questions at the end of the session or in between the sessions. It's going to be interactive, so it's more of a personalized experience, should I say. We've also made sure that, or the plan is to make sure that the course capacity is capped, and that is also to give the audience a more interactive and personalized experience. There will be testing conducted at the end, and the CPRs will be validated through a course certificate. When I say testing, obviously it's not going to be an extremely difficult test, but don't expect the test to be really easy as well. So it is going to test your skills. You have to be on your toes, and we would expect you to give it 100% when it comes to passing the course. Moving forward, some of the key takeaways that you can expect from this course is understanding basic data modeling and some of the advanced DAX functions. When I say advanced DAX functions, obviously we'll start with some of the basics, but we'll build on that, and we'll make sure that some of the advanced DAX questions, you actually have an understanding of the syntax. How does a function work? What type of functions can be used in similar contexts and or a different context? Then we'll also talk about and do loading and transforming the data using example data sets. We'll try and understand the difference between the primary keys and secondary keys, how to build relationships, how to clarify the relationship context, for example, one-to-many, many-to-one, and many-to-many type of relationships. And I'll also try and explain it to you what's the problem in having a many-to-many relationship, for example. Then I'll also expose you to time intelligence functions. Now, time intelligence, if you talk about in an Excel context, it's very easy to understand because it's just simply even a line chart is a time intelligent visual, for example. But Power BI works in a bit of a different way. Time intelligence is used mostly to compare periods on periods, which would include different types of periods. For example, quarter by quarter, year on year, week by week. So different type of time intelligence functions as to, and what we can use them with. Normally sales people use that function a lot just to see what's the changes in the sales, and then stock markets use that a lot as well from the perspective of moving averages and so on and so forth. Then we'll also talk about differences between calculated columns and measures. They might sound similar, but they're entirely different. And we'll talk about the benefit of one over other. We'll also talk about how to create the measures in calculated columns using the DAX functions. And most of this, you'll actually be learning through the lab exercise itself. So it's going to be hands-on. We'll be loading data sets, we'll be programming, we will be creating measures, we will be calculating columns, and we'll talk about, well, how can things be done differently as well? Because there are obviously many ways to do the same thing. Some of the examples that we're going to cover in terms of the formulas and functions include, but they're not limited to, the formulas and functions such as filters, if, sum statements, calculate function, distinct count, and so on and so forth. We'll also talk about applying feature engineering. Feature engineering, as we all know, we probably have been doing it since our childhood, but we just need to kind of use this term more often in a more technical or machine learning friendly way. It's being used a lot, this term, but feature engineering, essentially it's using or creating using similar variables that you've got, or the variables that you have in your data set, to create new variables on the basis of the old information. So for example, if you've got income that ranges from $1 to $100,000, if you create bins of that income in different amount buckets, it actually becomes a feature then. If you've got, for example, incomes in different buckets, and you create a bucket on the basis of, let's say this is a high income bucket, this is a low income bucket, this is a medium income bucket, that actually becomes a feature engineering. Then we'll also try and cover the KPIs as to, well, if you've got financial information, what sort of KPIs can be built? Or if you've got operational information, what sort of KPIs can be built in terms of the metrics, and then kind of, follow those metrics and performance analyze them, keep on tracking well with them. The time intelligence we've already talked about. We'll also talk about how to format the charts, apply filters on visualizations, reports, and pages, and what does it mean by applying a filter on a visualization versus a report and versus a page. We'll talk about different contexts when it comes to applying filters. So these are some of the summary level takeaways that I expect the participants are going to get from this particular course. The job market relevance is something that is very important. It's a very well thought out course. It's not a course that you just do just because you know how to do it. That's just one part of it. I can do it because I've been doing it in my own role, but I'm not designing this course merely from the perspective that because I'm comfortable teaching this course, that's why I'm teaching it. It's a course that I know is in demand, in the sense that when I personally hire people in my team, or when I engage someone from KPMG or Deloitte or PwC or from EY, I literally look for this skill set in a very active way. I talk to the associate directors and I ask them whether the senior consultant that you're giving me, can he do coding in R, for example? Can he do coding in Microsoft Power BI? Power BI is one of the first questions that I ask, because our entire business intelligence landscape and analytics landscape uses Power BI infrastructure to start with. And then when I also talk to the service providers, including the first and second tier firms, they also tell me that most of the activities that they're focusing on with respect to the uptake in the data analytics skill set is in Power BI. They're training and upskilling their people in Power BI. I mean, yes, there is Tableau as well, but they're noticing that in the market there's a far more uptake of Power BI because of the enterprise license agreements that Microsoft has given to various organizations. That if you've got a Microsoft Windows platform, you're using Microsoft laptops, for example, you might get certain number of Power BI licenses as a gift, for example, or as an enterprise gift. You've got 100 licenses that you can use, or the cost of the additional license becomes really cheap if you're on an enterprise Microsoft contract, for example. The community size is really big, which means that if you're stuck somewhere, you don't understand a formula, you cannot solve a problem, you can literally post your problem on the Microsoft community, and someone is literally going to get back to you within a few hours, maybe within a few minutes at times, and they're going to help you resolve that question. That type of a community support does not exist in a lot of other softwares. So when I look at the job market relevance, I also take into account, well, what's happening in the market with respect to some of the contemporary publications. And this is where I've kind of tried and gathered one of the most relevant publications that has happened recently, which is by ACCN, CA, ANZ. That's a joint work that they've done. And this publication is called Analytics in Finance and Accounting. And what they've noticed is, among other things, they're saying that few focus areas and actions are going to happen in analytics and finance teams. One is the governance and data management. And governance and data management obviously is a broad field, but to keep it short, we can no longer have issues of data quality. We need to make sure who owns the data. We need to have data stewardship figured out. We need to have naming conventions, standardized ways in which we talk about and identify data in an organization. They all are saying that big data is now a big reality, in the sense that, you know, there was a time when there only used to be 100 rows or 1,000 rows in a vendor master file, whereas now you could see there are literally 15,000, 20,000, 50,000 lines in vendor master file. And the bigger the organizations get, the global they get, more number you're going to have with respect to your vendor master files, employee master files. Your transaction processing systems have got lots of information, for example, millions and millions of rows. That's what we are talking about. There was a time then when your data center used to be really expensive. It was very expensive to store a lot of millions and millions of rows, and usually after archiving, you used to delete them after 10 years or 7 years. Now you've got the capability to literally do archiving in the cheapest of ways possible, because frankly speaking, the big hard drives have now become smaller hard drives, and those smaller hard drives can now even save data which is far larger than what used to be saved in a larger hard drive, for that matter. And then the computing power has increased as well. Then you've also, what they've noticed is hybridization of talent, which means that, and that's linked to the second point here, that what type of skills are needed to derive value from analytics. When we talk about hybridization of talent, we are actually, what they actually mean is that finance and accountancy is actually a baseline skill. If you're just a finance individual and just an accountant, you've done your CA or you've done your MBA or you've done some business degree. That's just a baseline expectation. Everyone knows that you have it. What they also want you to have is some form of coding capability, some form of data literacy and extraction capability, some form of mindset of being able to visualize data and do some sort of storytelling. And that's very easier said than done. Like, for example, if I'm not data literate and if I do not know, or if I'm not good at storytelling, I can actually run a regression between my income and someone else's misery. I might still find a relationship, but that doesn't mean that the relationship actually exists. In the same way, I mean, I can run a regression on of my car speed, what speed my car is being driven, and the weather outside. Does a relationship actually exist? That's a deeper question. Maybe we need to model it in a different way. We need to model it through a regression or through a boosting machine algorithm, different type of algorithms to try and make that relationship workable and predictive, for example. So that's the type of mindset that people are actually expecting, or employers are expecting from you as a baseline. So finance and accountancy is something that they're saying that, well, you have it, that's all right, we understand that. What about your data skills? How can you help me interrogating my large database, for example? Or do you have any sort of cloud data source extraction experience? For example, have you used Microsoft Azure before? Have you used some form of a visualization tool before? Can you turn my raw data into something that is more meaningful and provide me with some form of an insight? And what employers are also noticing, that the data literacy is actually at a very basic level still in a lot of organizations. And I'll give you some of the examples, like 2 examples from the Australian context, that in 2008, there was an Australian Royal Commission, and they actually found out, and there was a Royal Commission against the financial sector, and they actually found some of very basic mistakes, and they actually happened due to data processing errors. If their workforce was more data savvy, more data literate, these things shouldn't have happened. And the issues that came across from the findings were that some of the people who were dead were charged interest and fees, for example. Many of the people who didn't sign up for a service were charged a service fee, for example. Now, simple data literacy would have actually been able to highlight these type of exceptions before they would have happened in the first place. In the same way, after this COVID broke out, Australian Treasury actually buggled up one of the estimates for COVID budgetary support. So what happened is the government launched a scheme for JobKeeper. And JobKeeper is essentially a subsidy. Well, if you have reduced your turnover to 30% in terms of the sales, you are eligible for a subsidy. Let us know the number of people who would be paid the subsidy. The subsidy was valued at $1,500 a fortnight. And instead of saying that $1,500 was actually the subsidy amount, what people ended up doing, or the companies ended up doing, they actually inputted $1,500 in the number of employees field, or a number of employees column, which was being used by the ATO, the Australian Taxation Office, to collect the information. Now, if the ATO, the Australian Taxation Office, or the Treasury was a bit more data literate, they could have simply made some form of a histogram or a line chart that I've just mentioned on my screen there. They could have just simply created a chart and said, well, why are so many companies reporting 1,500 number of employees? Why is this such a rounded up number? And why is this a coincidence that 1,500 is actually same as the $1,500 per fortnight worth of the amount that we are actually going to pay the subsidy? That would have actually highlighted this error, that lots of the companies are actually over-reporting the number of employees based on a misunderstanding that 1,500 is what they're supposed to pay. Whereas the question that they were asking them was just the number of employees, not the amount of the subsidy. So these are just some of the examples that if you don't get your data literacy right, what you can end up with. And data literacy is literally about people. So if your people are not trained properly in terms of having that acumen and mindset of data, they're bound to make certain errors. And some of these errors can be really basic. as I'm just the examples that I've given you. These are very baseline errors. You don't expect these errors at such a big level. And I'm also going to mention one of the perspectives from NTT data, that they were actually part of a focus group in the same study conducted by ACCA and CA. And what they've talked about is that in the past, technology used to be a barrier with respect to exploitation of data, mainly due to the complexity and the cost of technology. There was an ROI constraint. So as I said before, that when you talk about using computing resources, let's say somewhere around 1980 or 1970, you required heaps of investment in your computing capabilities, because you had like what, 386. Pentium was not even there. It was a very basic processor. It couldn't handle a lot of computations. The data centers used to be very big for even very small amounts of data rows, for example. And you had the fastest computers, supercomputers, were even slower than the basic computers that we've got today. So that ROI constraint does not really exist anymore, which means that now the only thing that is left is actually the skills shortage. Now you actually need to upskill your people to be able to understand how do you engineer data, how do you cleanse it, and how do you use data science more in your decision making, for example. And that's backed by Gartner's estimate. Gartner is, as we know, is one of the most prestigious research organizations, professional services research organization. And what they're saying is that the perfect data scientist who understands finance, sales, marketing, and machine learning does not really exist, which brings us back to the point that previously I made, was hybridization of talent. That's where some of your finance people really need to upskill themselves and understand some of the machine learning side of things. Obviously, this course is not going to target machine learning directly, but Power BI is a tool where you can run through Power BI, you can run R scripts, Python scripts, and you can also integrate that with AutoML, which is your machine learning tools of Microsoft, for example. This course just provides you with that first baby step to put your foot in the door of a tool of visualization, so that you can build on those skills and then keep your journey forward. If we talk about, well, before I conclude, I'll talk about an early bird offer for this course as well. So because we've merely just launched this type of a program, and we're about to kick off our journey, what we've done is we've come up with some form of incentives as well to people who show early willingness to register in the course. And for that matter, if you register on or before 25th of this month, you get a 10% course fee reduction. You also get a free membership for the year with ABN Finsights, and you also get 10%. And that membership is actually giving you a 10% course fee reduction for all the courses during your membership period. So that, I think that mostly concludes my part. I can now open the forum for questions if there are any. Any questions, guys?
Always, no, I'm good, but it was a very good brief, very informative, and I think it's a good course. Definitely, there's no question about it, and it's more relevant to the current situation that people are going through, and I think this is probably the necessity of the finance now. And as you have rightly said, there's no room for the baseline accountant. You need to have extra skills, and this one I think really adds up to your skill set. So yeah, definitely a good course.
Thank you, mate. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just a quick question, Aves.
Yep.
What is the scenario? Let's say if my company is not interested in Power BI from their side, so the free tools available to anyone and everyone. Can I still be using that free tool and get most of this, based on the skills I learned from this course?
Well, basically, Power BI as a license, Power BI Desktop is actually a free tool. The only limitation of that tool is that you won't be able to publish a dashboard. So you might be able to share your screens or kind of, you know, paste your work as an image in a Word document, but you won't be able to publish that as a service on a cloud, for example. That's where you need some form of a license or a professional license, essentially. But if you want to do and present your findings and your insights to your management or to the employees through cross learning and cross functioning work in your own workplace, and you do not have a professional license and your organization does not go for it, you can still continue using your tool in a personal capacity. The only problem is going to be that you won't be able to publish it in the form of a dashboard. So you'll only be able to share them in the form of a screen or copy and paste it in your Word documents or presentations, for example. And DAX DAX is actually the programming language of Power BI. It's got a very familiar syntax. So if you learn DAX, you're going to realize that it's quite similar to SQL, which is again a Microsoft language, programming language for database and the database administration. So some of the skills are going to be very transferable, to be honest. Hope that answered your question.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions? No questions, I imagine.